Welcome back to the Hoop Temple podcast. My name is Aaron, Possible Shares on TikTok. I'm back for the first time in a while. Our usual host, Nate, not with us today. His beautiful wife having a baby. They're having their first child. We're so happy for him. He's taken a leave of absence. He will return when he can. The baby's first words will be said on the pod. We're making sure that lines up perfectly. But joining the pod as always is Dylan from New Zealand. How are you?
Doing good, Aaron. I like how saying it that way makes it sound like it's a company. It's like from from ESPN. It's from New Zealand.
That's right. You are the it's a cultural export in a way.
Yeah, in the same way that people say like China is like a basketball
Mm.
team or like a league. Like
It's
he's
kind of
gonna be
like
playing for China.
it's kind of like how Mad Max is like a cultural export of Australia. They like the Australian government like pays for that movie because it's like their thing. Like
Hmm.
you're being sponsored by the New Zealand government.
But the Australian government pays for that. They think
I'm
that's like
pretty
a good
sure
they think that's a
someone
good
told me that.
representation of their country.
Well, it's like their movie,
Okay,
right?
but like who watches Mad Max and is like, these, vast wastelands
Yeah, it's the
and
outback.
they're like, that looks like fun. We should fucking
Well,
go there.
I think the earlier ones are less like apocalyptic
Mm,
wasteland and more just like
mm,
we're just out here in general. But important pod today, which is the top 100 players of 2025, starting with 1 through 20. Now, we have our own personal list. We also have, of course, Nate's list. We also have Jack the Kings fans list. He said he's going to do a top 250. I said he's insane. He said, why are you complaining about long lists? You're like the dude who makes long lists. I said 250. 250 is still insanity. And I believe that. Like that's like every player ever. That's like every player in the league right now. How many
yeah,
players are
just
currently even getting minutes?
just rank every rotation player in the league. It'll be like
Basically.
250 to 300.
I mean, yeah, no, that's it's quite the tall order, but so I trust his top 20. So we have the averages. We'll get right into it. Dylan, who's the
Mm.
best player in the world right now?
This one was so. I thought that coming into this we'd have some differences, but I thought that what we'd all agree on was the number one and then the top four in no order. Um, and then I look to our collaborative spreadsheet. I'm trying to avoid spoilers, and I look across, and I'm seeing ones all across the board for Nikola Jokic until it gets to a certain column. Um, I thought easy. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league. He's an offense unto himself. He's not a defensive liability. If you've got him on your team, then you're going to win games, and is also a proven playoff performer. I didn't think there was any much discussion needed to be had um, as Jokic for number one, but maybe not the case.
Well, it's not that I feel entirely strongly about him, and I'm not gonna
Mm.
push back on this, and it's gonna be Jokic 1 because everyone else said that too. And if
Yeah.
there was an argument, like I'd really make it. I feel like Giannis has had the issues of getting injured in these playoffs, and he's lost in the first round in the last 2 seasons because of that. But part of me almost feels like after the Bucks got eliminated and he did not play, the way the playoffs went, the way the playoff games were played and won, and the way the finals went, I just feel like Giannis would have done really well. I feel like the way he plays, his defensive impact would have been really special in some of these playoff series. Even watching when the Wolves beat the Nuggets, I just kind of part of me felt like I feel like Giannis would have handled this better in a way. I think the Bucks and Giannis are primed to do better than Jokic and the Nuggets next season. I think there's an upward swing for Milwaukee, at least out of a disappointing year where the Nuggets seem to be slipping a little bit with losing KCP and their first round draft pick immediately tears his Achilles. So there's those issues, like team issues, but I think Jokic at one is totally reasonable. I just I paused a little bit.
Mhm, mhm.
We'll
No,
lock him
that's
in.
that's that's wonderful. All right, so we're unanimous on Giannis at 2.
Yeah, then that goes
Yeah,
right into that. So we had everyone else had Jokic at 1 and Giannis at 2, or yeah, except for me who flipped those, but that's how
yeah.
that landed up.
Mm.
So with
You
you're
know,
back on the clock for a
yeah.
unanimous third person,
I just want to talk on Giannis one more
please.
second. Um, I actually, this was one of my latest, as in the adjustment that I made most recently to the list as I was going through it last night. Um, this is gonna sound cheesy, but it is a true story, so I feel obligated to retell it in its true form. So I put on a record. I was doing my list, listening to Revolver by the Beatles, and I'm thinking about
Okay.
Giannis, and I'm thinking about the fact that I'm not sure that he, on his own, gets your offense or your defense anymore to a level where it's guaranteed to be great, which I am sure about a couple of these other guys. And what song comes on is Here, There, and Everywhere. And the undeniability of Giannis's impact and the totality of the game, high usage, high efficiency, versatile offensive player, and a probably the greatest help defender. Um, I won't speak on all time, that's your thing, but certainly
No, he's
in
up
the
there for sure, though.
in the league. Um, he is just here, there, he's everywhere. And the impact is felt right across the board. And so that's ultimately what made me put Giannis at 2. And then we go down to our number 3, who I think is one of those guys that if he's on your team, your offense is just going to be great.
Which is Luka, and we were all there for Luka. I wanna mention Giannis one more time because defensively, you're right on point. Like I feel like if he's in the right half of the court, like if he's crossed half court and there's a shot being taken, like he could get there in time. He is that kind of like defensive range. And offensively, like the impact numbers suggest that he's really never been like an elite offensive engine, but it is that two-way play that gives him that superstar best in the world kind of impact. And that'll always be there really. Um I'm curious to see how the Dame pairing goes. I was really high on it. It was a disaster last
Mm,
season. I think
mm.
Dame's going to be in better shape, although I don't think any of us are all too high on Dame in this ranking after a pretty tough season. But Luca kind of broke out of the mold this past season. I think we all kind of said like huge numbers, like big offensive stats, dude doesn't play defense and has the demeanor of a toddler. Like we would, none of us were really that into it. I think we had him closer to like 8 or 9 last season. I actually can answer that question right now. We had him as 7th, which was lower than the norm. I think a consensus like top 5 was pretty
Mhm.
standard. I mean, how did the finals run change your view on Luca?
Yeah, I mean, we're evaluating this. We're sort of considering, I think, 3 major things, which is, can you drive 82 game winning? Can you drive 16 game winning? And can you actually be on the court during those times? And Luca, I think, it just ticks all 3 of those boxes, especially with the playoff run where, like, in the past, there's been concerns because he's sort of worn down very quickly in previous series, and hasn't made a deep playoff run. But seeing what he was able to accomplish last year, even if it didn't end in a championship, um, I think reassured me that he, at least with the right breaks, absolutely does have the ability to be that number 1 championship guy, which I wasn't sure of last
Yeah,
season.
I think it's possible. I think it's certainly possible. His His defensive swing was interesting, where I feel like in the Western Conference playoffs, watching him, I actually thought he was totally fine defensively. Like for the first time in his career, and the impact numbers suggest this too, where it's like I actually think teams are targeting him and it's not just a total disaster. And he's punishing them offensively still. I feel like when it got to Boston, you had a team with like 5 guys they could put on the floor that could go at him off the dribble. And I mean, the amount of times Luca hit the ground throughout the playoffs, and I was like, that's the one. Like, he's not getting up after that one, especially the OKC series. Like, they were brutalizing him. And so I think eventually it slowed down and he wasn't able to keep that pace. Um, but yeah, I think that this run was everything for him. He's made the Western Conference playoffs before, Western Conference Finals before. Um, he did not play in most of that first round series. It was like Jalen Brunson dismantling like a dying Utah team that was just like at each other's throats. Um, but like that was a I feel like almost a legacy changing run where it like legitimized the big numbers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Number 4.
I had SGA, and everyone else had SGA. It's SGA.
Everyone agreed, unanimous top 4. When we did this last year, and we had Ben Golliver on, this was one of the rankings that he was most impressed by. Was our goal of putting SGA top 10 over the likes of, say, LeBron or Kawhi, who at that time was still sort of consensus top 10 players. I think we were right,
Oh
and
yeah.
Was absolutely a top 10 player last year. And coming into this rankings, if you had to ask me, is SGA a top 4 player? I'm not sure. Like that sounds quite right, but as you actually go through it, like Luka, a guy that is an offense unto himself, and unlike Luka, also is providing a lot of defensive value. One of the best thieves in the NBA, has a little bit more defensive, I suppose, versatility to fit into different defensive schemes, and provide value as opposed to providing, not providing negative value. The best driver in the league,
He's a machine.
SGA.
He last season he averaged 30 points a night on 35%, or sorry, 53% shooting. Flip the numbers there. 53% shooting, got to the line 9 times a game, 87% from the line. It's insanely efficient scoring. He rebounds, he passes well, and the defensive aspect is legitimate. Now, like the steal numbers suggest that he's at least active. I think he tries on defense and he always cares. That's like half of when players like are really bad defenders, that's usually the issue, is they're just not very
Yeah.
engaged. But SGA certainly is. He was 7th in depoy voting last year. I don't know how I feel about that one, but
Yeah.
still, like he's certainly a positive defender in my eyes. And like I don't think at any point is any team going to be like, we got to go at SGA. Like this is our target defensively, and that's a big deal when you're getting an efficient 30. I think him and Luka, I honestly wouldn't be upset if someone had him and Luka flipped. I think because of last season's results, this is how it kind of has to be. But if you're projecting out, I like the Thunder's chances of making the finals better than I like the Mavs' chances of even making it back to the third round.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Thunder have got to be maybe the Western Conference champion, favorite coming into this. And so yeah, I think all it is that you give the difference to the proven commodity. We know that Luka has made multiple deep playoff runs. We know that he can do that. And we'll see if Shea can, and hopefully this is the year, and then next year we'll know for sure, and he can be number 1.
Okay. Who did you have number 5?
Now this is where I'm surprised that I deviated from you guys so much, because I was ready to say, forget precedent, forget reputation. I'm looking at this objectively. I don't care what everyone else is going to have as their top 10. Who are the guys that I think are actually going to win you games? And you guys didn't agree with me, quite to the same degree. But I had Jalen Brunson as number 5, where I think he's the last of the guys, who I am confident can get you a really good regular season team, a deep playoff run, and is going to be, a playoff performer, and is actually should stay healthy enough to win you a lot of regular season games and playoff games. Was he top 5 in scoring last season? A lot of the impact metrics love him as well. Yeah, it's probably my my one of my spicier ones, but I was pretty confident in it.
One of the spicier ones until the next one.
Yeah.
but with Brunson, I
Hmm.
guess my thing is I didn't feel like last season was necessarily like the start of something going up. I more felt like it was like he was about a top 10 guy, and because the Knicks I think overachieved compared to what people were expecting, I think he played really well in the playoffs. You kind of get like accolades that inflate it a little bit. It's tricky. He fucking destroyed the Sixers. He averaged like 35 a game in the first round. in a series that, let me double check this real quick, but a low scoring series. Average score of 108 to 108, which is for 2024 basketball pretty low. He's scoring 35 points out of his team's 108. That's such a ridiculous offensive
Yeah,
responsibility.
that's like
I'm
scoring
actually
50 in a regular season game.
I'm not ready for 5, but I think I'm gonna go top 10 with you. Like, I think I'm interested. I ended up going pretty. I actually had him the lowest, but I'm into the Brunson arc. I do feel like this should be Embiid. I feel
Okay.
like it has to be, and you get the injury issues that will always be there. I think you look at it, and this dude is averaging. There's like a 20 game stretch where he's averaging like 38, 15, and 5. Like, you could just go and pick that out. Like, this guy looked like the best player in the world. Like, he was
Mm,
gonna win MVP, and then
yeah.
got injured. And I actually thought he was really good in the playoffs. Like, I felt like this was against the Sixers. I really felt like he played well. Like, I felt like his demeanor was pretty good. I think with Embiid, you're gonna get to the playoffs. He's gonna have a sprained ankle. His toe's gonna be bothering him. He's gonna have some neurological condition where he faints at the sight of his own shadow. Like, you're gonna have these problems, but he's so good, dude. You can't. Like, he's unguardable, and he's also just such an incredible rim protector as well. So, like, when he missed time, it wasn't just the offense that the Sixers missing. Like, their defense is crumbling.
Mm. Yeah, no. I think per minute, maybe the best player in the NBA. You
Yeah, per
talk about
minute.
the you talk
10 games season. It's when I on 2K when I set the games to 1 minute each to see what the stats end up, be the best player in the world.
that's a interesting tactic. I haven't seen that one before. But yeah, like centerpiece of a really good offense, anchor of a really good defense, is gonna play like 50 games, but you'll probably win 35 of them. And then is good for like maybe one playoff round. Um, per minute,
Yeah,
like I
basically.
said, when he's on the floor, he's top 2 and maybe not 2. Um,
Yeah.
but going back to, I think this is finally the year that I'm out on Embiid, whereas I had always been beating the drum that this is the guy. When he's good, he is so good. And some of these injuries aren't like necessarily like repeatable things. Like there's some bad luck stuff, just like falling on a guy's foot or getting hit in the face by a teammate. This sort of stuff that shouldn't recur, but it always fucking recurs
Yeah.
somehow. And I talked about Ben Gulliver's praise for our boldness on SGA. One of the first things he said when it came on, he's like, "You fucking guys will never learn with Embiid." as as for the second straight year that we'd had him on, I had Embiid as like top 3, and he's like, "You guys will
Yeah.
never fucking learn."
He
And I've learned. I'm out.
Embiid had a 17 game stretch where he averaged 40, 12, and 5. I don't know, dude. Like, I think it was
Yeah.
the highest like point per minute because he played. It was 34 a night, 33 minutes a game. I think it's like him and Wilt basically. Um, I'm just not ready yet because I feel like he was playing his best basketball last season. And I do feel like the injury thing, it's gonna be like an accident, or it's not like he's not injury prone necessarily. We said this with Beal, or I said this with Beal last season, where it's like the injuries that are happening to him aren't
Mm,
because his ligaments are weak or his bones are fragile. He doesn't have glass bones and paper skin. Like, this part of being injury prone is just shit happens to you. And that's just what Embiid does. Like, I think
mm.
I'm sure you saw the dunk against Team USA. Where he like pump fake Jokic and went baseline, dunked it, and then no one's around him, and then he like barrel rolled on the floor. Like, he just hits the ground a lot. Like, I think players that like bang bodies a lot in the paint, lots of physical contact, those guys last way longer than the guys who hit the floor a lot because the floor wins every time. And I think that's kind of I think, and I know Embiid's like learning how to fall, trying to take that contact, but a part of me feels like he hits the ground too much. Okay,
He's
now
in like
this
he's in
was
Hollywood. He's doing stuntman training to learn how to take these falls properly.
seriously. I think it's like some point just spent too much goddamn, and like in times where he like the crashing into people while falling. Anyways, I think he should
Mm.
be next. That's what the average was.
Yeah,
Do
yeah. We
you
can we
push
can we
back
can do
too
that.
far? All right.
We can do that.
All right. make the case. Tyrese Haliburton at 6. We have to hear it. Now, I want to point out that you had Tyrese Haliburton at number 6. Where the hell even is he? I had him 18. Nate had him 21st, and Jack had him 27th. Now, I'm more inclined to go closer to you and like kind of closer. Like, I think I think he's like a 15-ish, right? But I
Mhm.
have to hear why he should be 6th.
Um, the first half of last season, before he got injured, whenever he was on the court, the Pacers could not fail to put the ball in the hoop. He's just become the guy that when he is on the floor, there's nothing that the defense can do um, to stop him. He's got that awful 3-point shot that never misses. He's got the drive and collapse. He's one of the best passers in the league. I am. He just when we're talking about what trying to assess what value it is that we're trying to account for. I brought up those 3 criteria of drives 82 game winning, drive 16 game is going to be on the court. He did miss time last year, and was sort of forced to play when he shouldn't have been playing because of the NBA's game requirement rules. So hopefully that doesn't cause any long term injuries. But there's no reason to suggest that he's likely to have, I guess, a recurrent injury. And he's the last guy in the NBA that I'm confident when you've got him, you are going to be elite at one thing, and that thing is you're going to be possibly the best offense in the league. And being the best offense in the league means that you're going to be a really good team. You're going to win a lot of games. So I almost want to hear like
Mhm.
Nate and Jack's argument. Like, how
Yeah.
can you be so low on a guy who is guaranteed to give you like a top 3 offense?
Here's my argument against him is that throughout those early Pacers games, and I have it, the first 32 games, the Pacers won 20 of them, and he's averaging 24 and 13. He looked like Steve Nash. It was
Mm.
incredible. Um, he shot 50, 40, 87 splits. Like it's hyper efficient. My issue, I think the Pacers were playing a very kind of almost like characterized version of basketball. I have like a every team ever graph, and they were way in the bottom right, where it's like
Mhm.
all offense, no defense. It's like them and some like early 2000s Mavs teams basically that have gone that far in that direction. And those teams don't win anything. They lose in the first round. And even throughout that, by the end of the season, they had moved back into the like kind of towards the middle. They were out of like that crazy all offense, no defense corner. I think you will get if you're is I think the trade-off is if you're getting that top one offense, like the best offense, you're probably like the worst defensive team in the league.
Um,
and s- Go ahead.
I guess the only thing to counter that is that it's not like the Pacers had to go to some ridiculous one-sided offensive units to make him succeed. Like the guys that he was playing with, Nemhard, Naismith, um, Obi Toppin, Miles Turner. It's not like these are crazy one-way guys where they just put them out there because all they can do is shoot and like run. Like they're not necessarily one-way guys. And so I guess my only counter to that is that the idea that yes, the Pacers were a bad defense, but I don't think there's anything in Tyrese Halliburton's nature other than himself being a bad defender, which at the point guard is not so important. But I don't think there's anything in his nature that necessitates that you have to be a bad defense. I think that you can put more defensively competent guys around him, and he'll still elevate them to a very high level of offense. Um,
Dude, I'm kind of into it. I'm not ready yet. I'm so
uh,
easily swayed. I
it's,
I think there's a
hmm.
couple names I'd like to get off the board, but I honestly love the case. I think the Pacers are going to be good this season. I think he's going to be such a massive part of that. Man, that's tricky. So Halliburton ended up coming down like 18th, basically,
Hmm.
because of everyone else's mistakes.
Yeah. If
Um,
we average just you and me, he's in at 12. Um,
there you go. I feel like that's closer. How do you feel about like our average being like? How do you feel about like 12?
I think like you run into a guy into sort of a range where outside of the top four, and maybe top five with Embiid, that all these guys are pretty close. You know, they're like
Mm-hmm.
almost in the same tier, and so I'm okay with dropping 6 to 12 sounds like a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
you're sort of going through the elite players. So I will um we can preliminarily put him in at 12 until a guy that
Yeah.
hopefully there's no one that comes in above him where we're just like, come on, man.
Let's hang on to that. So we still have
Mm,
Brunson, so he'll be over Halliburton because we had that. We both had that.
mhm.
I'll say we'll get Halliburton in before LeBron. I'm sure you'd love that. Because I think you're right about. I think the thing with LeBron, he's going to put up these big numbers, but the offense impact has been limited.
Yeah,
And
he's
he's
gonna put up good numbers. The team is gonna be mediocre on offense. They're gonna be mediocre on defense. And like, if we're talking about increasing your championship odds, like, yes, he's probably gonna
you're
be
right.
a good player in the playoff. But when you're coming out of the 10 seed every season, like your odds are so low to begin with because he on his own is not good enough to drive either offense or defense to be elite.
Am I like? I feel like I'm having a fever dream. The Pacers made the conference finals last year, right? Did that really happen?
It was an insane
Holy shit!
year
Yeah,
for
they did.
playoffs.
Right? So I think you're told. I think you've nailed that in the sense where Halliburton, he was healthy. He wasn't his same self, but hey, listen, man, they won those games. They made the conference finals, and they honestly, dude, I mean, it was close in the conference finals.
They
It was
they
a
they
sweep.
silver
Those,
medaled in the in-season tournament.
yeah, big game Halliburton. Okay, let's start. Can I offer Kevin Durant first?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, with Durant, just like I don't think he's ever going to be bad. It's never going to happen, especially last season where I think we all kind of factored in like he's going to play 60 games. It's like no, he's not. He played in I think like 75, and so you
75
get
games.
75 games. He's gonna average like 30 a night on preposterous efficiency. I think the issues the Suns had really had nothing to do with him, and he was like dragging that team around to start that season. Um, Before I think Booker came on, but like I think they'll get a better Beal season. I like that they actually added point guards. I think the things that Durant struggles with throughout his career, which is like having the ball in his hands and having to create, got really just crushed by the Wolves. And I think if they played again, I'd pick the Suns again. I'd make that mistake twice in a row. But I feel like with more ball
They got
handlers, they
they got
got me
destroyed, and
again.
you're like, I'm ready to do it again.
I would do it again. I feel like with Beal being more of himself, with Tyus Jones and Monte Morris. Took me a second to think of those guys. I just like the team better. I think they made a huge mistake in running the 0 point guard sets. Although I think Booker actually was good at the point guard
Mm,
position and surprised me.
yeah,
I like this direction more.
yeah,
You love
and
Durant. You are a huge Durant guy. I gotta hear it.
yeah. I mean, if you just go to like his shooting splits by like zone, it's absurd that he's able to be this efficient. There's not really any other player in the league that's like elite efficiency at the rim, elite efficiency on floaters, elite efficiency on long mid range, elite efficiency on 3 pointers. It's like no one else in the league can do that. This guy can just get whatever shot he wants, and it's always going to go in. And it also there is statistical evidence that that actually does translate as well to a high level of offense. The Suns weren't that good. They're probably better than most people think about, because their expectations were so high, and obviously they disappointed. But a team with no point guard had an elite offense when Kevin Durant was in the game, and a lot of that was without Booker. A lot of that was without Beal. If he was on the floor, the offense was elite.
I'm trying to check something real quick because I actually feel like I predicted the Suns to be like that good. Like exactly. I think we all were kind of
Yeah,
in on the
yeah,
Suns
yeah,
being
yeah.
about that good. So it wasn't. I think it was disappointing to people who loved
It
that
was,
big three. I hated the Beal move. So I actually think I still think they're gonna win 50 something games. They'll be a playoff team. So Durant
mhm.
came in at 8 in the average. Above him was still Steph Curry and Jason Tatum. I had Steph at 6. You had him at 9. with Tatum, I had him at 9. You had him at 10. Nate had him at 9. It's Jack who had him at 5, which I vehemently disagree with. But we can talk about. I think the average is perfect before I toss Jack's ranking in there. Do you want to comment on those two guys and why they fell? I guess essentially fell below Haliburton and Brunson.
I think Haliburton and Brunson have a similar argument, which is just that when they're on your team, you're going to be really good at offense, and that wins you a lot of games. That has always been the argument for Steph Curry, that when he's on your team, you've got a guaranteed level that your offense is going to be great because he makes every 3-pointer. Teams double team him off the ball and let guys walk straight in for a layup. That is sadly, I think I had him top 3 last year. Increasingly, that is not the case for Steph Curry. Some of these offenses just aren't quite the same level. And I think he played a lot of games last year, but at this point in his career, small guard with injury history, I wouldn't count on him for as many games. I wouldn't expect as Brunson or Haliburton, these younger guys. And so, yeah, I still did give some credit to Steph as a top 10 player because I do still think that there is that argument there. And even I think there is still if everything breaks right, could he still be the number 1 guy on like a deep playoff team? I think he probably could. But I'm just not so confident in him as either a regular season's wins guy, or as that undeniable number 1 on a deep playoff team.
I think you're in the right direction. I try to I guess I'm trying. Maybe I tried not to be wrong too much throughout the list, because I can say, hey, like Steph was great. He's always been great. Didn't see that fall off coming, and it's much bolder to make that switch. But I'm trying to be brave. I'm trying to find my man. What is it? The lion and finds his courage in the Wizard of
Yeah.
Oz.
Yeah.
What does he get? He just gets courage, right? He doesn't get like a physical item. Have you seen the movie?
When I was like 5. such like a quintessential movie, and I can't even remember like the most important plot point.
He gets his courage.
He
Honestly think
finds
the big thing.
ambiguous the disembodied essence of courage.
There you go. With Steph, I mean, Steph is 36.5 right now. Like, I think his game with his shooting is always going to be impactful, but like he really is getting up there. Last season was the worst minus his injured 2020 season, basically since like 2013. And I don't think any of us really saw that or really commented on it a ton. I think the Warriors kind of being a disaster with Draymond, also Steph had a really hot start, kind of masked the fact that defensively he didn't look the same, and the offensive impact numbers weren't the same either. Usually just the second he steps on the floor, it's like, and they're winning by 10 plus on average. But it just wasn't
everyone
there.
is not touching the ball.
Yeah. I think he should be top 10. Man, are we gonna put Haliburton right here? This is what I'll say about Tatum. I'll be a hater. I watched Jason Tatum brick jump shots for 4 straight rounds and win the title. I'm not interested in him as like an elite of the elite guys. I think he'll be first team All NBA again because his team will win 68 games. It'll be crazy, right?
I actually think he's going to win MVP this year.
You're kidding, man. It's like
I don't think he'll be my pick, but I think that that's where it's heading.
I can't see that. I think he would have gotten. I just don't know if like what's going to change. What do you think is going to change?
It's the bounce back. It's the narrative. You've got to. I mean, they probably will win more games as well. But yeah, the bounce back, the narrative. It's also the track record. Like the voters don't give guys who haven't had a top 5 finish votes to be MVP. No one has ever, I think, won MVP without having previously finished top 5, which he hadn't done in the previous season, but now has. Actually, yeah, he'd probably be the exception.
Probably, right?
Yeah,
that is sure. Like, I mean, it's literally his 3rd year. So
yeah,
Tatum's been in the league for 15 years now.
Yeah, even though he's still only 19 years old.
He's only 19. How does he do it? I feel like Tatum hasn't changed as a player. I think he's just as good last season as he was the season prior. I think in a way, I remember with the Celtics, we had Tatum. I think we had Tatum 5th last year. Let me find this. We had Tatum 6 and Jaylen Brown like way off in the deep end, in like 35th or something around there. Why can't I find stuff like this? One second. It's because you guys ranked him so goddamn low. 32nd.
And I'm gonna do it again.
Last season, I feel like that definitely came together where it's like it's not a top 10 player and a top 30 guy. It's more like or a top 5 and top 30. It's more like top 10 and top like 25. Like these are coming. Like Brown and Tatum are much closer together.
Yeah, and some of it really is like the lack of absence in absentia, like the fact that without him, they won the championship. When he's off the floor, they continue to just run through teams. The efficiency for his usage isn't quite at the same level that, like, we're talking about when we consider these other top 10 guys. He's still over 60% true shooting, so he's still pretty good. But he's, not quite Kawhi or AD or even Devin Booker or Kevin Durant, certainly. And so, the efficiency is not quite there. There's no statistical, like per 100 suggestions that he's actually impacting winning. The eye test, certainly. Defensively, he's a very good help guy. He's a good digger, a good nail defender. Even if he's overrated as an on-ball defender. But yeah, like the team won a championship with him being bad. He was bad in the playoffs, so he's not a guy that I'm like, yeah, this guy's gonna be on another team, which isn't the deepest team of all time. Or one of them. I'm not confident that he's good enough to carry that a regular sort of playoff team. And there's like the concerning thing is that there's no advanced statistical suggestion that it actually makes your offense good.
I think
Which
you
you do
nailed
kind
it.
of see.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And I meant to, I got a little derailed. I meant to finish this thought. The first part of the thought was Tatum is just as good as he always was, but the Celtics just built a team so unbelievably stacked that his flaws don't matter. And so in previous years, when he can't find the bottom of the bucket, now he has all these guys around him to just win the game anyways. I mean, I know it's like the Twitter narrative where it's like if Tatum did that, his team would win. Like I know it's
Yeah,
I do think that's legitimate.
yeah.
I think that's a legitimate thing where, especially like during the finals, where it's like Tatum's melting down, and he had a good. If he finished the series 4 strong, but I think they leave those first 3 games down like losing. Like I think they would have lost a couple of those, or whatever it was. But I think Jaylen Brown stepped up in those moments. You got big Drew Holiday games and stuff, and so the times where Tatum didn't show up, now his team was just so fucking loaded, where it just didn't matter. This is what I did. I put Brunson 7 and Haliburton 8. I feel like, you know what? I think you're onto something. I think we're reaching a bit of a changing of the guards. How about Tatum here at 9? Because that's where I had.
You don't want to go Steph at 9?
Yeah, I do want to go Steph at 9. Steph at 9. Tatum at 10. All right. So we have on average, the first 9 guys are the same, just slightly shuffled. Then Haliburton Dylan laid down the most convincing case God's green nurse ever heard. And he's right. We're putting Haliburton in there. All right. So by average, the next nomination is LeBron. Jack had him 9th. I had him 8th. Dylan had him 12th. And Nate had him at 6th. Nate's a dirty, slimy Lakers fan. And I can't trust him. Do the Olympics change anything for LeBron?
I was going to say, I wonder if I talked him into that, because I actually did make the case that the Olympics did actually change my mind, that I was premature on LeBron's exiting the guy that can just get you a bucket and deep in the playoffs. Like if you had
Mhm.
asked me a year ago, I'd be like, he can't do that. Like he doesn't have the skill, he doesn't have the craft, he doesn't have sort of a go-to move. I don't think he can actually do it. But the Olympics, he was able to do it. Like admittedly, it's against Gershon Yabusele. Maybe it'll be different when it's against freaking OG Anunoby. But I think I talked Nate into. Well, I'm sure he has his own beliefs, but that was one of the things that we did discuss. Is that like the Olympics actually did change my mind. I think LeBron actually does have that gear that he
Mhm.
can still go to. The reason that I didn't care that much about it is because he's not going to turn it on, and they're going to win 42 games, and he's not going to have a chance to need to
Yeah.
get to that gear. And so it's what point is there? But I think if I had to guess what Nate's coming at is that he does still believe that LeBron's got that um, next step that he can go to, that he can still be that number one guy. Um, but I just don't think because he doesn't do that in the regular season, because he can't do that in the regular season, he would wear down.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter as much because the team's never going to be good enough to, unless he's like your second or third option. Well, he's
He'd
never going to
have
be
to
a
be.
third, unless he's your second option. Then that becomes valuable. But if we're talking about valuable second options, then lower end of the
Yeah.
outside the top 10.
And it takes a toll for sure. I think with LeBron, if you like, all right, it's the playoffs. You got to win this playoff series. Like, take your pick. But I think it's going to go exactly like you're saying, which is the Lakers are going to win 44 games. They're going to match up against a really good team and get fucking smoked, right? Like they're going to get destroyed by a real, like a deep, talented team. LeBron might average 28, 8, and 8 and look awesome, but that's him turning it on. That's like you get one series of that because he's not going to get an easier first round matchup because he can't carry in the regular season like that. Um, I think the rest of the Lakers roster is awful. Doesn't help, right? I also feel like
Yeah, we're probably not going to be talking about too many Lakers in our top 100.
no, man. I don't. I think I had D'Lo. I think I had D'Lo like towards the
Yeah,
back end.
he's probably a top 100 player, and
But with
maybe Reeves. I haven't gone that far.
they also were healthy with LeBron and Anthony Davis, and that was not something we had anticipated. And
Yeah,
so with that,
yeah,
I
they
don't know if
both
you're
played a
gonna
lot of
get that
games.
again. If let's say Davis gets hurt this time, and it's like a serious struggle to get to 44 wins, it's gonna look a lot different. Do you feel comfortable placing him at 11?
Uh
Ooh, give me a name.
I mean the only guy I've got above him,
Hmm.
which you're going to accuse me of homerism in the same way that you accuse Nate, placing LeBron top six. Um, Kawhi Leonard
Oh,
is better at almost everything than LeBron is, except staying healthy. And if we're Kawhi Leonard does have the offensive skill to carry an offense, it does translate to elite offenses when he's on the floor, which LeBron doesn't. Um, and he does have that go to ability in the playoffs. Now you've got to weigh up the likelihood that LeBron is able to go on a deep playoff run from the 10 seed because he's not good enough in the regular season,
Tennessee.
um, or that Kawhi is able to go on a deep playoff run without his knees falling apart. And so both of those things are pretty unlikely, um, maybe equally unlikely. And
Yeah,
so Kawhi is a better overall player, except that he misses games, but the value from missing games and the value from not being good enough to make your team a high seed or be a go-to playoff player, I think is similar.
man, that's a really interesting angle. I feel like the way I feel like I'd much rather the guy who does play in the playoffs and like who turns it on. At least I feel like I'd prefer that. Where I think with
Yeah,
Kawhi, you're getting like a huge question mark. I like to say that like, LeBron is definitely a better passer, better playmaker. Um, so there's
yeah.
that
Did you
aspect.
know
But
that?
I mean, go ahead.
Do you know that Kawhi shoots better from every single zone than LeBron does? From
I'd
three,
believe that.
from long mid range, from floater, at the rim. He's a better rim finisher than LeBron at this point in his
Much better
career.
free throw shooter. Much better
Better
free throw
free throw
shooter.
shooter, better on ball defender. Other than, like you say, LeBron is still a top 5 passer in the league, and Kawhi has
Mhm.
turned himself into a very good passer for a forward.
Yeah.
But obviously there are levels here. Um, but yeah, I think if we're talking about who increases your championship odds more, um, and you detract from the fact that LeBron can't get you to an elite offense to win regular season games, and Kawhi probably won't be healthy, may or may not be healthy, it's equally weighing you down.
Yeah. I'm just gonna ruin this, and I'm gonna throw in the guy that I had number 10 just as a name. I
Mm,
should have mentioned him earlier, but I had Wembanyama at 10.
mm.
And I feel like no one else is really interested. I'm not sure what everyone else is looking at, because I think the one thing that holds Wembanyama back is I think the Spurs want Cooper Flag. I think you're gonna do that on purpose. And whether that affects Wembanyama's games played, but the Spurs are gonna win like sub 30. Like they're gonna be deep in the lottery. And he's not gonna get
And then
close to
they'll have a
LeBron.
dynasty.
And then they'll have a dynasty. Wembanyama's gonna average like 25, 12, 5 with a steal and 4 blocks next season. He's gonna be the
Yeah.
best defensive player in basketball. He's gonna win deep way,
Mm.
and you're gonna see development on the offensive end. I think it's gonna be a kind of shocking. And you saw him just get so good so fast last season, where it was like kind of like, isn't this crazy? To like, holy shit, like this guy is unreal. Let me pull up his like back end splits real quick. Just give me a moment.
Yeah, once
Uh,
once they moved him to center, because they did sort of the farcical thing of, well, we need another center on the floor with them, so we'll play um freaking what's his name Collins at the
Zach
5,
Collins.
Zach Collins,
What?
and plummet our
Yeesh.
team by playing Zach Collins as the starting 5 and Wimby at the 4. And then all of their centers got injured, and they're like, "Fuck! Now we have to play Wimby at the 5."
Mhm.
And then they became a good team.
So in the last 36 games, he averaged 23 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, a steal and a half, and 4 blocks on 47% shooting, 35% from 3 on 6 attempts, and 79% from the line. I think he should be here. I think there's no fucking way that if he's healthy, we look back and be like, yeah, he was number 15. Like, it's not gonna happen. Like, I think there is a better chance that we are way off, and he's just like one of the 3 best players in the world next season. Like
Okay.
that's a real possibility.
Yeah. Ultimately, I had him actually outside the top 20. And the reason is
Jesus Christ. Go ahead.
at 21. Um, and that was another late one where I was changing around 2021. Like, who am I going to go with? Um, ultimately, the thing that held me back is that he's actually a very inefficient scorer. I don't think that he's a positive. Well, he still does things for you offensively, but
What
I
if
don't
he
think
is?
that he's a
What if he
very good offensive
changes
player.
that?
Yeah.
What if he
However,
changes that? What if he shoots
however,
50% from the field?
the thing that gives me pause is a lot of that is shot selection. He took as many threes as he did layups last year.
Yeah. Just put it on the
And he was
rim,
playing
dude.
on a garbage team. If that becomes 3/4 layups, 1/4 3-pointers, that true shooting goes from well below average to league average, and the usage is still high. If Chris Paul can throw him some freaking lobs, if he can just get the ball at the rim, that could change everything. And so that's the thing that gives me pause to be like, maybe you're right, because I do agree he's probably like already the best defensive player in the world. Like
Mhm.
when he's out there, no one can freaking do anything. Um, like no one just attempts a layup, and that really hurts your offense. Um, but the offense was so inefficient.
Mhm.
Um, but on a garbage team, not playing for much, having to play with another center at a lot of times, and a lot of that is shot selection. The rim percentage is good. The 3-point percentage is mediocre. Takes half of the shots from 3. If more of those move to the rim, the percentages come up. Um, and yeah, like, is that likely to happen? Is it likely that he can do that? Probably, maybe.
Yeah. I'd like to nod on the Chris Paul thing. I don't think Chris Paul has jack shit left in the tank, and I think this is like a assistant coaching hire. But like, I don't like the Spurs weren't really running any point guards that could pass. Like they did like the Sohan experiment a bit. Like it was a disaster. And I feel
Yeah.
like just a bit looking at the impact numbers from cleaning the glass, Wembanyama made the Spurs 1.8 points per 100 possessions worse on offense, but 8.5 points per 100 possessions better on defense. It's crazy defensive impact. Like, I just think you're gonna look back and I think the Spurs are gonna be better with him on offense this year. Can I pull this a little bit? How do you feel?
Let's
Yeah, I'll say this: we have Wemby, LeBron, and Kawhi. Go ahead.
Why don't we do Wemby, Kawhi, LeBron?
I have to get fucking destroyed on TikTok, dude. I've been trying to beat I've been trying to beat the LeBron hater allegations for weeks, dude. I did like the best like
and you're gonna come out and be like, LeBron is the 15th best player in the NBA, and Wemby's better than him.
I think he is. Fuck it, let's do it. What a disaster.
You're gonna spend your whole week making Wemby and LeBron videos. No, we could do
What a fucking mess. Yeah, no, I feel like I feel like the LeBron thing, you look at him like, this guy's incredible, and the team is just dead fucking even when he plays, basically. And the roster isn't good. It's not like the advanced numbers don't suggest that he's dragging around a bad team. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like mediocre when he's on and mediocre when he's off.
Yeah, it was 88th percentile last season. What was Kawhi? Because he made the Lakers better on both ends for sure. Yeah, Kawhi was 93rd percentile. He made the Lakers better on both ends, but like, that's from the worst offense in the league to average, basically. It's so tricky because LeBron makes his teammates better. I think he makes like spot up 3-point shooters are gonna like do great things with him. But I don't think he like elevates guys like he used to. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I agree that you're sort of forced into a Kawhi and LeBron actually have pretty similar sort of impact numbers. The Clippers without Kawhi are a little bit better than the Lakers, and then Kawhi makes them a lot better, and then same thing with the Lakers, they're a little bit worse than the Clippers are without LeBron, and then when LeBron's on, they get a bit better. Sorry, what was your? Oh, LeBron's impact on his teammates, yeah. Yeah, I mean, do you think maybe that's been overrated the whole time? Like he always
they're gonna crucify me, John. Like, they're gonna kill me.
Okay. This is my opinion. This is not Aaron's opinion. Okay, don't unsubscribe from his Patreon. Okay, give him those $3 a month. Like, spot up shooters get open shots, rim runners get dunks. How exactly else is he elevating the play of other offensive players?
I don't
know. Relieving the ball handling duty from point guards that makes their life a little bit easier. Maybe it's like someone like Kyrie or D Wade. Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's not a total falsehood. But maybe it's that you have to be a certain level of player before you actually start to reap those benefits. Actually, he probably makes D'Lo's life a lot easier. Actually, if D'Lo was the true point guard, the team would be a lot worse with him.
I can see that.
I think he still probably does help out with improving the play of his teammates.
I would like to point out that, like, I know LeBron never gets worse in his just like, he's the ageless wonder. Like, he's gonna be 40 at some point during this season. Like, I do think the minutes he does play, like, he is getting worse. He is getting marginally worse. And while he still is incredible, like last season, he went, let's say 2022, he averaged 30 a night in 56 games. It was incredible in the games that he played. Then 29. Then this past season, he averaged 26 a night, which 26 nights is still good, but this was like the big offensive explosion season. And everyone's getting 30, everyone's getting 20. I think we had 40 plus 20 point per game scorers.
Was that the bullshit year where he was playing center and not trying at all?
Say it again.
Was that the bullshit year where he was playing center and not trying to win games at all, and just trying to put up numbers?
Yes. But I think I think we have seen a decline. Jesus. Where he was, instead of like third I think would have been the scoring title in 2022. It was 13th last season. Yeah, all right. I'm gonna get killed. All right, my next guy was Anthony Edwards. Where did you
Yeah.
have Han?
I ended up behind a couple guys.
Okay.
My concern with him is that the numbers don't match. I feel like the eye test or my heart. The impact metrics aren't that kind. The efficiency is
No.
bad. And yet, if you ask me, like, which guy do I want? Like, I can't really name too many more guys before I'm going
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards. And still young, still going to be improving. Hopefully that efficiency can come up as maybe he improves as a shooter, improves his foul drawing maybe even more,
Hmm.
and improves his shot selection. But yeah, like a really good on-ball defender who actually plays defense. Like none of these other offensive superstars are actually going out and trying hard on defense.
Yeah.
The way that he is from an on-ball perspective, which is much more fatiguing than I guess patrolling the paint. Can create difficult shots, can be a go-to guy, even though he did kind of flame out a little bit in the playoffs. And the efficiency is still kind of ugly.
It can be. I think he is number one in when he's on. He's the greatest player of all time.
Oh yeah.
When he's like against Phoenix, when he's like really hot, especially against when the Denver series started, the mid range shooting. I mean, I've never seen Michael Jordan live, but I swear to God, that's exactly what it would look like. And you get that shot making, and then he turns around and really cares defensively. I mean, he's not some like elite defensive player, but
Mm,
he's Kobe defensively, basically, where it's like when he locks in, he just shuts guys down. And that
yeah.
gets you all defensive selections. I think
Yeah.
I'm leading a bit into, I think he's gonna get better. I would like to I'm gonna make an amendment to my own list, and I think we should do Booker then Ant.
Yeah.
Okay. You wanna make a comment on Booker?
Um Way more efficient and impactful than you realize. Super efficient scoring. Played point guard last year and obviously missed some time, but not as much as probably what I remember. Got through 68 games still. And the Suns were really, really good when he was on. Like he is still probably a guy that is creeping into that territory of if you've got him, you just got to be good at offense because he has become an incredibly efficient scorer, a good passer, just a good all round offensive player. Um, Not a defensive liability if he's not asked to do too much. One of the biggest turnarounds I think in maybe NBA history from inefficient, empty stats chucker, worst defender in the league to perfectly competent defensively, elevating offense, efficient scoring, smart decision making. I think he's just a lot better than maybe what people realize.
Lost you for a second there. Perfectly competent defensively, and then what
Okay.
else? Yes.
Perfectly competent defensively and can elevate an offense just a lot better, I think, than maybe what a lot of people realize.
It turns out playing with Marquise Chris isn't great for your career trajectory to start out. All right, locking him in.
Oh, speaking of Marquise Chris,
Yeah,
I heard a guy on TikTok with the most outrageous. You get like those random TikTok accounts that are just like a rundown of like highlight plays and that sort of thing, where
sure.
like maybe they aren't too tuned into like actual NBA basketball. This guy
Mm-hmm.
called Marquise Chris Marqueezy. I was like, oh my
Marquise Chris.
god.
Okay, it's a hell of that. Yeah, it's great, man. God,
Yeah,
Marquise
it's like
Chris,
it's
such a
like I can tell
fucking
you've never
moron.
watched. I can tell you've never watched basketball, but I appreciate your efforts, man. That's awesome.
Marquise Chris and Yorgos Papianis fights, circa like 2018, maybe. I forget what year that was. Bottom of the barrel, dude. I
You
didn't
were in
see
the
the light at
trenches,
that
man.
point. Well, we the Sun Kings, and we played each other seemingly 8 times a season, and there was a fight every time. Both teams were like 15 games below 500, just a disaster. Okay,
And now look at you
so
guys.
the next guy, we're all kind of around the same range. Of course, Nate is higher on him than us.
Hmm.
You know what we're talking about?
Hmm.
Go ahead, take it away.
Um, the consensus next guy is Anthony Davis,
Yeah.
and the internet is going to be mad that he slipped even this far, because he has this uh, reputation as a dominant two-way guy. Um, and my reservation with him is that he is a really good two-way guy,
Mhm.
not an offensive ceiling raiser, um, not and like there's like a difference between skill and impact, which we talk about defensively, where people who are like Rudy Gobert is worse than Marcus Smart, are looking at I guess skill versus impact, and people who are going to make the case for Anthony Davis as the best defensive player in the league, from a skill perspective, from a diversified repertoire, as a versatility perspective, and I would probably agree. However, the actual defensive indicators don't say he's getting you to an elite defense, and he hasn't really done that for the past few years. Like, certainly will get you to a good position, not an elite rim protector, in the same way that like a Wembanyama or Gobert are, not a super impactful help defender in the way that maybe a Giannis or even maybe a like a Alex Caruso are. Um, Really solid, and maybe that's a little bit of LeBron syndrome too, where he's coasting, and he can turn that on, and he does have that versatile skill set to defend a wide range of different players. But it's like he's really good at everything and not great
Yeah. I was really into
overall.
Davis last year, and I think I misplaced a bit of that. Where I saw a Lakers roster of basically no other good defenders be like average. But at the same time, if LeBron is like the most versatile, greatest offensive player in the league, right? 40% from three, top five passer. Anthony Davis is also the best defensive player in basketball. Some people will say, why does this team suck so goddamn
Yeah,
much? Like
why
I
is this
just
team
like
500?
if they have both ends covered, what's going on? I think I do really like Davis. I'm curious where his health is going to be. Um, I guess the biggest thing, I just don't like his offensive impact very much. I think
Yeah.
defensively, I think the impact numbers are lower than I think. I mean, I can't say
Mm,
the numbers are wrong, but I just
yeah.
watching the
I mean,
games, I'm like, this guy is such a good rim protector, and his perimeter defense has actually been quite good. But he can't shoot, and he can't shoot from deep two either.
yeah, and when they went on their championship run, that was the big thing for him, is that he was just became like a mid-range god. Like, you could
Yeah.
just chuck it to him, at the high post and it would go in. And he
Hmm.
doesn't have that anymore. All he can do is finish at the rim. And you know, there's a lot of centers that can do that. Um, the to the defensive perspective, sorry to run it back to there.
No, of course.
But just to give some numbers, Lakers opponent rim percentage when Anthony Davis is in the game. Looking at the past 3 years. So last year, 66, which is 52nd percentile, so about average.
Hmm.
Before that, 67, 42nd percentile, so below average. And before that, 67, but in a I guess a lower um sort of environment, so that or a higher rather. And so that became in the 29th percentile. So we're talking about teams score really well at the rim when Anthony Davis is on the floor. And certainly if they're one on one with him, those numbers are going to be more impressive. But that overall number of is the other team getting to the rim and how are they shooting, the fact that they get there all the time and shoot really well when Anthony Davis is on the floor, I think is the reason that his um, defensive overall numbers aren't as impressive. Like, teams still finish well around the rim. And I should clarify that they don't get there as often. He's maybe playing a little bit more of that Bam style of deter away from the rim rather than contest at the rim. But if we want to talk about him as an elite rim protector, which people will do to defend him, the numbers just don't say that.
Unfortunately, although I think I do feel like it's different though. I think that the him deterring players is the biggest thing. Where I watched all the Kings games, right, and I know the sets are running, and I know where the shots are going to come from, and what these players are trying to do. But against the Lakers, it all changes when Davis is out there. I think that's what the rim protection looks like to me. Or maybe we're still getting those looks, but it's like the shots we usually take, we just like turn around because he's sitting
Yeah,
right there.
yeah,
So let's lock him
yeah,
in at
yeah,
16. And I want to
yeah.
hear. Go
After
ahead.
shitting on him, he is still a really good two-way player.
Fantastic two-way guy.
Mm.
Will he ever be better than LeBron? Maybe that'll never happen. All right. We need
Yeah,
a
the
nomination. You want to
passing
go
of the
ahead?
torch just never comes. Um, it's
You have 4 more spots.
mm, the consensus next pick. We have a tie.
Mm-hmm.
Although we're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that maybe people have forgotten about, because of injury, because of some team stuff. We're not too far removed from Ja Morant just carrying a team in the regular season and in the playoffs, being a one-man offense and elevating a team of lower level offensive talent to incredible heights. Um, and I'm not positive that he's still got that, but I am pretty confident that he can still get there, if he's healthy. And if he is that guy, then he's probably closer to top 10. And so Ja was the next guy that I had.
Okay. I'd like to push for Donovan Mitchell, but I do think he's here. I mean, he can't stay on the court. He's coming back from was it shoulder surgery? I forget what
Mhm.
injury he had. He also is coming back from being like the league's biggest dumbass. So there's that
Oh
holding him back
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And so, like, you hope he can stay on the floor, but in the last 127 games, last 3 seasons, he's 27, 6 and 7.5 assists. He's the most athletic point guard in the league. He's such a dynamic scorer. He's a good passer. His impact defensive numbers are also pretty good. Um, I think Mitchell should be here because he played last season. The Cavs were really good. They were 36 and 19 with him and below 500 without him. And he gave the Celtics like 30 a night on crazy efficiency. Like he had the
Yeah.
best series against them throughout the playoffs. I think Ja just has to. I feel like Ja has to blow him given the proven commodity thing. And I have no idea what this Grizzlies season will look like. Well, I'm pretty confident the Cavs are just going to be pretty good, and Donovan Mitchell will be really good.
Yeah, no, I'm down for that. So like peak Jar peaks higher than peak Mitchell. However, the I guess expected value maybe of Donovan Mitchell because he actually plays all the time and plays well all the time, um, is probably higher than what Jar gives you.
Okay, let me toss out a name. Let me see where we're standing.
It gets tricky
Hmm.
here
It
to
gets
close
really
it out.
tricky. We start falling off. So the next guy by
Mm.
average is Paul George, but I wasn't close on that. And I'll comment on that where Paul George, I think, was top 20 last season. I feel like what he's stepping into in Philly as he's getting older, I think he's close to 35 now. As he's getting older, I don't think they're going to ask him to be a top 20 guy. I don't think he's going to have to be that. And I think Philly wants it that way. Um, he's going to be like third option Paul George. I think he's going to average like close to 20 a night because he's behind Embiid and he's behind Maxi. I think Maxi's going to be in terms of scoring, which is interesting because I still had Maxi. I think they were closer together. I guess if I'm saying that, I probably should connect the two trains of thought.
Mm.
For him and Maxi to kind of be like the 2A 2B, I just don't see him being a top 20 guy again.
Mm. Um, I guess I'm looking a little bit less at circumstance and more just at what I guess happened last year, which was he gave you a very efficient, you know,
Mm-hmm.
was it 23 and and 3 and 5 rebounds and play good defense and can be a go-to scorer, can carry an offense. I think one of the biggest on-off differentials off the top of my head, let me just double check that. Maybe thinking of someone else, but I think one of the biggest.
I think I'd be more
Let
comfortable with the next guy for our average, which you had at 19, which is Kyrie. Because if we're talking this point, this is going to be second option Paul George, and I think I'm actually more interested in like what Kyrie brings in that regard. Although I did not have.
Yeah, I guess it's yeah. Well, maybe we maybe the compromise is number 19 is both of our number 20, which is Jimmy Butler.
Yeah,
who ended
there
up
you
lower
go.
because Nate is out on Jimmy Buckets, but you and I both had him at 20.
It's
And
the same
so
LeBron argument. He's not going to carry in the regular season, but I do feel like the team allows for that. I guess his circumstances, like I think they'll make the playoffs if he's healthy. I mean, what are we? It was wasn't last season, but the season prior where he nuked the Bucks like I've never seen before. Like he destroyed them. It was like 38 a game, and so there's like that's still pretty like recent enough where it matters to me. I think that's a good call. I still feel like he brings defensive intensity. It's gonna be like he's gonna be like 25-5 on standard efficiency, and then he's gonna destroy your favorite team in a 5-game playoff series. You're like, what the fuck just happened? Like, whoa, like man, like I thought we had a shot there.
Yeah,
Okay, let's do
he's
that.
gonna go out and shoot like the third most out of any player on his team, and they're gonna be, 8 points better when he's on, which they were last year. Heat with Jimmy off worse than the Lakers with LeBron off, and then Heat with Jimmy on are better than the Lakers with LeBron on. Which is to say, that's
Okay.
very confusing to follow. But Jimmy has a greater differential in his on off.
Okay. That makes sense. All right,
And
let's try
even
to find a
LeBron.
compromise for this 20th spot. I don't like I feel like with Paul George we have that
Mm.
gap. With Kyrie we have that gap. Is there anyone De'Aaron Fox, you have 24 and 22, which I could argue the case for. Last season, I think he was hurt. I think the shooting aspect that you're looking for, he developed last year. I think it was almost a two-pronged thing where he started to take threes and hit threes at a clip we've never seen him come close to in his career. Then he hurt his shoulder and decided to only take threes. And so what made him really good wasn't there anymore, which is the mid-range stuff, which is getting to the basket. He was a totally different player. Defensively, it just seems strange. I went to some games and it's like, this is the greatest player of all time. And I love De'Aaron Fox. And I went to a game and he got absolutely nuked by Killian Hayes. And the next day they cut Killian. Like he like it was like that. It was where we were at with
He
the De'Aaron
killed by a
Fox
replacement
experience.
player.
It was he got cooked by a guy who's out of the league by the time he got home.
Yeah,
And
he
so
locked up Steph Curry and then got cooked by a
I feel
guy
like
without a job.
Sabonis was excellent last season. He was much better than Fox was. He played almost every game. He averaged like a near triple double. He owned the defensive glass. I thought he was better defensively. The numbers suggest that. But in the end, it's like in come playoff time, if the guy who doesn't look at the rim is your best player, like that's going to be tricky. And Fox is going to be able to be that guy who takes over the fourth. And I think DeMar DeRozan's going to help with that too. Where I think Sabonis's scoring issues, like isolation scoring problems that he has like zero ability to do so, will be alleviated. Would you hate me if we did Fox here?
I think it's the solution.
Let's do it.
Yeah, he's the guy that I'd have, after I think Kyrie and Paul George. And so yeah, like he's the, I guess, gets to similar offensive levels as Kyrie. Maybe not quite the same heights, but maybe. An efficient scorer, an offensive driver, a guy that you can trust in the playoffs. Clutch demon again. Which is like one of these things that never seems to translate year to year, but actually is maybe a good indicator of playoff success. The fact that you can get this guy to get you a bucket. Became a mid-range killer. The 3-point is good. The rim's always good. Can turn on the defense, like you said. And so if we're splitting hairs probably peaks at a higher offensively than Paul George does,
Mhm.
and peaks higher defensively than Kyrie Irving does, and probably better availability you'd expect than both of those guys, even though he might have played fewest. Not he
All
played the
right.
most out of those three guys as well.
Yeah. Which is he played through a lot of injury. I think that's a great spot for him. Um, and a little spoiler, but his team is gonna be good too. So, so that so that helps. But all right, top 20's done on at a reasonable pace. For the best players in basketball. Dylan, where can the people find you?
Every second week from now on the Hoops
Yeah.
Temple podcast, as we're in the dregs of the off season, we're going to go to every second week. So we'll be back with more top 100, more spicy player rankings, more things to yell at me through your headphones about.
We did the top 20. We'll hit the. Are we doing top 50 next?
Yeah,
What's
I
the
think I think
order?
we
Yeah,
just
we'll
I
get
think we
out to
just yeah.
50.
There's this list that we need to talk about with some of these
Yeah.
guys.
We'll get out to 50 and we'll keep it going every other week. Shout out the Podfather, Nate. Enjoy retirement, semi-retirement, and enjoy fatherhood. Wonderful stuff. You can find me, Possible Chairs, on TikTok, Possible Chairs on Twitter, my Patreon, or you can find this list that I'll post, other top 100 positional lists, all time stuff, ridiculous lists, and write ups, as well as my Cameo, where you can pay me to do and say anything. All right. Thanks for listening.